Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez, and this is episode 496. I am joined, as always, by my co-host Prez, that is @_Presidente on Twitter and @Presidente on Blue Sky. Prez, how are you doing on this Thursday? A very nice Thursday evening, if I must say myself.
I'm just doing shit and not trying to think about the last game. I'm looking forward. I'm not thinking about the past.
That's very big of you. If only we were all so.
If only the point of this podcast wasn't to talk about the recent past.
Yep, that's unfortunate for you. All right, we're going to talk about that. The Knicks losing in rather disgusting fashion to the Celtics in Game 5, 127-102. I don't know. I kind of stopped paying attention last 3 minutes of the game. Also, shout out Pacome. First playoff minutes, playoff riser. Pacome died. Yeah, you heard it here first. But before we do that, I do have to make a few announcements. First, week, Strickland has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are, you might have done so already. Please like, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise you can find on our website at www.thestrick.land. There's a link to take you to the merchandise store, and there's all kinds of cool stuff on there, like t-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it, we've got it. Strickland also has a Patreon which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland's podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, a podcast hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, along with Zach Blatter. And you get access to the Strickland Discord of the conversation of a subset. For the tiers, there's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod, where I rant about them. You see more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Marino, one of the best in the business. And you get access to Strictly NFL, which you guessed it is a podcast by the NFL that's hosted by Constantine Metricos and Desmond Novak. There are further tiers. It's $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tiers come with a variety of additional benefits, like listening on our pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and potentially co-host a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not, unless it would be possible without you. And we will start now with the Knicks. The Knicks lost 127-102. I don't really know what to say about this game, not because there's not plenty to say about the game in and of itself, but look, you can talk about the X's and O's, which there's plenty of X's and O stuff that went wrong for the Knicks. You can talk about, did they come out with a sense of urgency, which, every time they've been losing games, this seems to be a conversation point is, how much urgency do they play with? Was it the requisite amount of urgency? Should have been more, should have been less. Whatever the case is, that's always another part of the conversation. But the reason I struggle to have much of a thought about this is just very simply, I think you can have all the X's and O's, they can all be great and they can be good and they can be wonderful, but if you consistently play personnel groupings that are suboptimal, you are not going to get the reward to the extent that you deserve. And we have talked extensively on here through this series that regardless of the results, the tactical shifts made by Thibs defensively in terms of switching more were excellent. They were smart. They were the Knicks' or part of the Knicks' only path to winning this series, quite frankly, as far as I saw it. He deserves a ton of credit for that, and we've given him a ton of credit for that. The other part that is also under his control would be to play the best lineups you have at your disposal. Well, unfortunately for the Knicks, that's not what's occurred. And I want to read some stats here for you. I'm just going to read this. Okay. The Knicks starting five has played the most minutes of any five-man lineup in the second round. They played 107 minutes. I'll tell you the names out. After that, it's the Denver starters at 102 minutes, Pacers starters at 80 minutes, OKC starters at a very nice 69 minutes, Minnesota starters also at a very nice 69 minutes, Boston starters, the Horford group anyway, 60 minutes, Denver's bench unit when, I'll just read it off, Westbrook, Gordon, Jokic, Murray, Christian Brown, 37 minutes. Then the Cavs starters. Then Golden State starters in lieu of Steph. And then some random Minnesota grouping of their bench guys and starters, which is Randall, DiVincenzo, Reed, Edwards, McDaniels. That's at 27 minutes. Now, the Knicks net rating Mind you, this is the lineup that has played the most in the second round. The absolute most in the second round. They are sporting a very cool 100.9 offensive rating, 117.2 defensive rating, good for a minus 16.3 net. Here are the rest of the groups, right? So I named the top 10 most used five-man lineups. Here's the rest, just in terms of net rating. The Denver one, the starters, 4.6. Indiana starters, plus 30 net rating. OKC starters, plus 4. Minnesota starters, plus 26.7. Boston starters with Horford instead of Porzingis, plus 5.1. Denver's bench group with Westbrook coming in for MPJ, minus 4.8. Cleveland's starters, minus 4.4. Golden State starters without Steph. Okay. The Golden State starters without Steph, who went up against a Minnesota starting five, which has an amazing net rating and played more minutes, plus 0.2. Treaded water. Congrats to them. And then the Minnesota bench starters mix, plus 18.3. Here's some other stats that I'm going to get to once this all loads. For the entire postseason, the Knicks have 107 offensive rating. Basketball Reference has their starters as a minus 8.6 net. NBA.com stats has them at a minus 7.3. Since January 1st, including both regular season playoffs, starting five is at a minus 3.5 net. It's 114.1 offensive rating, 117.6 defensive rating. And for the coup de grace, courtesy of Frank Barrett, who does work for us and also is the co-host of Hot Hand Theory, the Knicks starters have played 47.3% of the Knicks' postseason minutes. 252 of 533 minutes dedicated to the starters. Their lineup is a minus 7.3 per 100 possessions. They are up 3-2 against fucking Boston in round 2. And the lineup that they are running into the ground is the one that is nuking them and forcing them to play from behind far too often in each half. This is all to say, we rightfully have praised Tom Thibodeau for the tactical shifts he's made in this series. This group, we can figure out in the offseason why it's not working. What can we do to make it work? Will it work? How will it work? Why doesn't it? Like, we can have that entire conversation in the offseason. It isn't working right now. It has not worked in months. And it's getting worse. You know why it's getting worse? Not because they're actually playing worse, but because they're playing better fucking teams. Every fucking night, they're playing an actual good basketball team. So it's going to be worse. If you do not play your best lineups, or if you're at least not quick to make changes in game, you're going to get burned. And like, it doesn't matter how good your tactics are. It doesn't matter how good the group's mental focus or all the, like, this is
the most significant thing a coach can do to affect the game of basketball is not play calls. It's not installing schemes. It's putting the best players on the floor. Like,
it's literally finding the best lineups. Like, this is precisely why, like if you look at basically the reason why Phil Jackson won 11 championships on top of, like, you know, having Michael Jordan, all these Hall of Famers, is they basically, he always figured out, like, oh yeah, this group is good. This is the best group. That's the best group. Like, you're not, like, just as an example, if you go back to their 2009 and 2010 when they won the title both those years, they would start Bynum. Remember, they would start Bynum and Gasol, and then Odom would come off the bench. But they would always close, right, with Odom and Gasol in the front court. But like, it basically,
and you kids don't remember, but like,
Bynum was nice.
Bynum was nice, and he put up some real numbers at a very young age that were pretty impressive, and they were like counting stats. Like, he was getting 20 and 10 games. He was getting blocks. So on paper, going by the counting stats, like, he was clearly deserving of a starter spot. But when the chips was pushed in, it wasn't just the counting stats that got you the minutes from Phil.
Yeah, and you know, like, to bring it back to this Knicks team, these lineups are whatever. We can talk about who is the reason the starting lineup doesn't work. Again, I don't think that conversation, it's a necessary conversation to have, but it's not a necessary conversation to have right now. Because right now, it just is what it is. Like, it is what it is. We have months of a sample size. It's what it is. It's not going to change anytime soon. So we know exactly that there is a problem. Even if we can all disagree on what the problem is. Oh, Cat sucks on defense. Josh Hart's a space cadet. Brunson's too small. Mikal Bridges and OG and Obi can't dribble. I don't give a shit. Like, it doesn't matter who individually is most to blame or what. What matters is the group doesn't work. That's it. It does not work right now. And you have to adjust to that. And in the meantime, you have Mitchell Robinson, who is a fucking nightmare for Boston. They do not want him on the floor. Like, they don't want him on the floor. And you'd
Shout
also,
out Mitch. Look extra confident knocking down those free throws yesterday.
Yeah, and did the night.
That was so fucking funny.
And like, to me, yesterday's game, it's not like, I'm not like looking like, oh, I can't, it's unacceptable the Knicks lost. That's whatever. Like, I don't know if any fucking lineup change or rotation changes that Thibs made was going to win that game for them. You know, that you lose by 25 points, you lose by 25 points. Like, we can sit here and talk about rotations all day, but it's not like it was a 6-point game. But when it's 59-59 at halftime, he does not make a sub, even after 2 timeouts or like occur. 2 timeouts. He does not make a sub until I think the 3:13 mark. By that time, the Knicks are down 13. And the fucking piss take of this is, I think the Knicks they were in the bonus, or the next foul is going to take them a bonus. So he brings Mitch in. What's the first thing Boston does? They foul him. Now, Mitch made both free throws yesterday because he was, amazing yesterday, apparently, at free throw shooting. But the point isn't like this cannot be individual game results-based decisions. You have to look at the larger sample. And while I think it's defensible, like, I do think it's defensible to be like, well, all these net ratings with these lineups with Deuce and these lineups with Mitch, there might be great, but these are small samples you're talking about. So how do you exactly know how real that is and, what matchups are best for them? I don't know. Like I said, I don't think there's any lineup changes Thibs could have made yesterday, maybe during that game, that were going to win it. Certainly not in the second half, with however fucking ridiculous the Knicks are playing, and we can talk about strategy all day, but individual players got to own it too. They had a terrible second half as a group and as individuals. But you can't, like, the one thing we do know for sure, okay? We might not know, well, how real is that group? How real is that lineup? We know for sure the starters aren't good. We know that's the one thing, that is the absolute one thing that I think can be said with no uncertainty right now, is that starting group, again, for whatever reason, I do not give a shit what anybody's specific opinion is of what the reason is. For whatever fucking reason you think it sucks, it just does suck. That's it. It sucks. Stop playing it this much. And if you stop playing it this much and you play lineups that have shown more promise, and your team shows up with its fucking collective head, not up its ass, but actually, in the game, you should win this series. You should win this series. It is really that simple to me. If you play better lineups and guys execute the scheme, and I'm just talking about the defensive scheme, because offensively, I am of the opinion that this team is what it is on that end. You're not going to install some motion-heavy offense at this point. There's always going to be a lot of mismatch hunting. The best thing you can do, by the way, if you are going to do this mismatch hunting, ISO post-up stuff, is to prioritize putting lineups out there where 5 guys are being honored in some capacity. Josh Hart comes in for a lot of criticism, and I've been guilty of it. We've all done our, what the fuck is Josh Hart doing? Blah, blah, blah. You are hanging this guy out to dry. You are hanging him out to dry by, like, leaving him in these lineups where he's obviously being defended in a way where it's affecting the overall output of the unit. Okay, like yesterday, Josh hit what, 5 threes, 6 threes? I don't fucking know. Whatever he hit.
He had 5 threes.
He hit 5 threes. Okay, he hit 5 threes, and I'm telling you, every single one of those left his hands. I was like, that's good. That's good. That's good. Like, you could tell he was shooting well. And do you want to know what the sum effect of it all was? Nothing. It was nothing. Boston didn't
Nothing,
care.
because they're taking the trade-off is their bet is that they will sign up for a maximum of 15 points of damage, right? Because that's the best shooting day Josh Hart is probably going to have in any series, 5 threes, in exchange for during all of his 30 plus minutes, the Knicks will be playing 4-on-5. That is what Joe Mazzulla is betting. And what I wanted to get into is how Joe Mazzulla, how his coaching has changed from the beginning of the series to the end. But I don't want to interrupt where you were going. But basically, like the bet, especially with Kristaps now relegated to nothingness since he can't breathe or move, and Mazzulla finally pulled the plug on him mercifully, or unmercifully.
Yeah, unmercifully is not what I would say. Leave him in.
Right.
Leave him in, Joe.
I wish. I know, right? $30 million doesn't that mean anything to you? He's such a big investment for the Boston Celtics. Marcus Smart died for this. No, basically it's like, okay, we'll take 15 points in exchange for 4-on-5 during 30 something minutes of the 48 minutes of basketball that we play.
It doesn't
Easy decision.
It doesn't matter to him because he doesn't care what Josh Hart. He cares about what the team scores when Josh Hart's on the floor. That's what matters. Not that Josh Hart's scoring.
Yeah,
that doesn't matter.
Exactly. It doesn't
matters.
matter.
It matters what the team does. And the problem with this is just to get Josh Hart to like be on the floor and for that group to perform very well offensively. Like you have to go watch game 4. They use Josh Hart in like probably the most creative ways they have off ball at least for the entire postseason.
Game 4.
Yeah, they did a great job using blah blah blah.
And they ran blah blah
stuff. Yeah, they pushed the tempo. They did all these things. And Jalen Brunson had a fucking phenomenal like shooting night, and Mikal Bridges had a phenomenal shooting night in those lineups. And their best lineup still did not have Josh Hart. They had Deuce McBride and Mitchell Robinson on the floor. So this is not me. I want to be very clear about this because there are people that are like that think if you don't want Josh Hart on the floor, you're just like, oh, so you just want a 5-out lineup. You think that'll solve it? I don't think that. I don't fucking think that. In fact, which I will talk about later, my entire like takeaway from this postseason is
this is the Shwin wet dream that has been like marinating for months now, and this is the final confirmation.
Like my entire takeaway is that the Knicks really should probably only have 5. Like you always have the 5-out option if you have Cat as like a change of pace, whatever.
But let it be the off-speed pitch.
Yeah, and it should be used every night to some extent. But this team, very clearly, I don't give a shit what the reasons are. I mean, I know I have an idea what the reasons are. But this team, to me, very clearly benefits from having an actual defensive anchor at the 5. And that's not like a hot take. The reason I'm saying that is because they also, under Thibs anyway, this is just how he set the team up, he doesn't care about 5-out spacing. He doesn't care about it. He hasn't cared about it all year. He does not give a shit because he's basically not prioritized having 5 shooters on the floor. So if this guy is going to be your coach going into next season, and we'll see, a lot can change in the next 3 days. You have to consider that. Now, getting away from the macro thing, getting away from that. The entire point, though, is that winning this series is completely within the Knicks' capabilities. It is in their grasp. They pressure, yeah, they have all the pressure. Fine, fuck all that. I don't. To me, I think when guys step on the court, for the most part, the pressure that exists usually is coming from the opponent and their own internal expectations. I don't think they're sitting there on the floor thinking about like what Shwinny Poo tweeted the other night. Their pressure that they're dealing with is internal for the most part, especially once they step on the court. All that stuff is real. I'm not denying that that's real. The Knicks 100% with Tatum being out, having had a 3-1 lead. This is like must-win series type of territory. All the pressure is 100% on them. Please make it easier for them. Please. I don't need you to do galaxy brain offensive like sets. I don't need some fucking crazy, genius defensive, game plan. I don't need any of that. I don't need that. And I don't think this team needs that to win this series. They need to simply, one, what the players have to do, and this is on the players, got to execute the scheme and got to make better decisions in transition, especially because I don't know what the hell that was yesterday. But their defensive execution has to be much better. Their offensive execution has to be better too. And the other thing, and this has nothing to do with players, this is completely on the coach. Please play more of the lineups that make sense instead of the one that fucking sucks. That's it. That is all you do. If you do that, you will win this series. In all likelihood, you will win this series if you do those things. And if you don't win this series, it's probably if you don't win the series having done those things, it's probably because Boston went on some crazy outlier shooting thing for 2 games and you tip your cap and you move on. That's it. They are not going to beat you if you execute the scheme and you play your best lineups. If you execute the scheme and don't play your best lineups, they might still win. If you don't execute the scheme and play your best lineups, they might win. But if you do the 2 things, so players execute, coach plays the right lineups, if you do those 2 things, you're probably going to win this series. You are probably going to win this series. And really, really, game 6 should not be that close if you do that. And you get normal kind of like outcomes across the board in terms of shooting and all that shit on both sides of the ball, like from both teams.